top story if you're just joining us. Prime Minister Steve Harper will join the Queen, other dignitaries, and thousands of Canadians at the Vimy Memorial. There are many ways to remember people, looking at old photos, talking to relatives, but our next guest has gone high-tech to remember those who fought at Vimy Ridge. Robert Patterson has been writing a blog about his journey to France. His grandfather fought in the 1917 battle, and Robert is in Vimy with his family. He joins us now. Nice to see you there, Robert. I know that you've been writing about this and researching this for years. What's it like, though, to finally be there?
Well, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been able to bring my son and my nephew as well. So my grandfather has his great-grandchildren here 90 years after the day. And I often wonder, for him and for other men, could they ever imagine that nearly a century later, you know, the country, particularly the young, would be remembering them?
So, as you mentioned, your grandfather fought there. What do you know about him?
Well, I've learned a lot in the last couple of years, but in some detail right now. He was just over the ridge. If you were looking at me from the camera, he'd be about 2 miles away in his battery firing support prior to the battle right now. And they were firing nearly 2,000 rounds a gun a day. So it was really an enormous effort. And he'd been in France since February 1915. In every single action that the Canadian Army was involved with, and he was gassed just at the end of the war and survived and left France in September. So he actually saw action every single engagement in the war, and it's very rare. Few people survive to do that.
So having seen where he fought and being there now, how has that changed your perception of what he went through?
It makes it much more real. We were walking around the site today, looking at all the shell holes and everything, and you just start to get a sense of what a brutal landscape this had become, and how much stamina it must have required just to keep on going. So I sense here is very human, like how could you have the will and the endurance to keep on going day after day, year after year. So a sense of great gratitude and thanks for him.
I was going to ask you, as you mentioned, it is incredible that he survived all of those battles. From what you know, speaking to relatives, what do you think it was about him that helped him get through it all?
What he told my father was that it all really boiled down to he and his men. I think that when people start wars, you know, it's all about king and country and everything, but I think for him, it all boiled down to him and a few hundred people that he was very close to. I think these men became his brothers, and they had a dinner every year after the war until the last of them were dead. And they were that close. So I think what kept him going was this sense of brotherhood.
I understand that he also became friends with the man who planned the attack, Sir Arthur Currie. What can you tell us about that friendship?
Well, Montreal was a very small world, and Arthur Currie had grown up in Vancouver, and after the war, Arthur Currie became the president of McGill. And being a very small community, he you know, would have known everybody there, including my grandfather. And they were, of course, all gunners together, and they'd been gunners before the war and knew each other even then. But the funny story that we like to tell in the family is about General Currie trying to find a plumber. And not knowing anybody, he asked my grandfather if he knew anybody who could fix a pipe. And my grandfather said, well, yes, my brother-in-law. And so my brother-in-law was sent for. My brother-in-law was one of the big road contractors in Montreal. He arrived in his chauffeur-driven limousine wearing evening dress, and so he and the general got stripped to their shirts and fixed the pipe together. And it was that kind of community.
You talk so much about what this means to you personally. I'm wondering what this means to you as a Canadian, and we talk so much about how this was almost the birth of a nation.
I think that for me, I've thought about this sometime. I think it goes beyond bravery and a great event. For me, the great story here, which might be the universal one, is that, remember, everybody until now had failed, not just failed at Vimy, but really had failed to break through anywhere. And here's this amateur army, you know, only 3,000 professionals, run by people, you know, Curry himself had been a real estate salesman, Andy McNaughton, a professor at McGill. This was an amateur army that wouldn't take the kind of bullshit that the British, you know, thought were the standard rules, and they basically reinvented warfare. And it was a very democratic process. So I think there's another side of this beyond the bravery, which is the Canadian Army, because they were amateurs, because they refused to accept the doctrine, were probably the cleverest army. And we tend to forget that here was this tiny unit that used to present, you know, 100,000 men in the field at a time that outfought everybody. In the last 4 months of the war, the Canadians, there were 100,000 of them, 600,000 Americans, covered twice the distance, chewed up twice the amount of German divisions, and captured 3 times the amount of prisoners. That's pretty good performance. So for me, I think we tend to undervalue our military, and we tend to undervalue our story. And I think it's very pleasing to me to see so many children coming here on Monday, because I think they'll get a sense here that the Canadians, if they really put their mind to it, can outshine and excel anybody. That's what I would like to remember.
Robert Patterson, wonderful to speak to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.